Still, why we call the day of Jesus' death Good Friday instead of Bad Friday or something similar? Some Christian traditions do take the approach. In German, for example, the day is called Karfreitag or Sorrowful Friday. In English, in fact, the origin of the term is debated. Some believe it developed from an older name, God's Friday. Regardless of the origin, the name Good Friday is entirely appropriate because the suffering and the death of Jesus, as terrible as it was, marked the dramatic culmination of God's plan to save His people from their sins. In order for the good news of the gospel to have meaning for us, we first have to understand the bad news of our condition as sinful people under condemnation. The good news of deliverance only makes sense once we see how we are enslaved. Another way of saying this is that it is important to understand and distinguish between law and gospel in Scripture. We need the law first to show us how hopeless our condition is. Then the gospel of Jesus' grace comes and brings us relief and salvation. In the same way, Good Friday is good because, as terrible as the day was, it had to happen for us to receive the joy of Easter. The wrath of God against sin has to be poured out upon Jesus, the perfect sacrificial substitute, in order for the forgiveness and salvation to be poured out on us and on the nations. Without that awful day of suffering, sorrow, and shed blood on the cross, God could not be both just and justifier of those who trust in Jesus. The day that seemed to be the greatest triumph of evil was actually the death blow in God's gloriously good plan to redeem the world from bondage. The cross is where we see the convergence of great suffering and God's forgiveness. In Psalms 85 verse 10, "Sing of a day when righteousness and peace will kiss each other." The cross of Jesus is where that occurred, where God's demands, His righteousness, coincided with His mercy. We receive divine forgiveness, mercy, and peace because Jesus willingly took our divine punishment, the result of God's righteousness against sin. Jesus endured the cross on Good Friday, knowing it led to His resurrection, our salvation, and the beginning of God's reign of righteousness and peace. Good Friday marks the day when wrath and mercy met at the cross. That's why Good Friday is so dark and so good.